The number 6 in the six-hand operation ruling is not a random number. It is based on the number of main breakers that a qualified electrical worker is permitted to operate manually in a given period of time. This ruling is intended to ensure that electrical workers are not exposed to excessive risk of electrical shock or injury when operating main breakers. The six-hand operation ruling is based on several factors. Firstly, the time it takes to operate a main breaker manually is a factor. Secondly, the physical effort required to operate a main breaker manually is a factor. Thirdly, the potential for electrical shock or injury when operating a main breaker manually is also a factor. The six-hand operation ruling helps to ensure that electrical workers are able to operate main breakers safely and efficiently. It also helps to reduce the risk of electrical accidents and injuries. When considering the six-hand operation rule, it is important to understand the context of electrical safety standards and the role of qualified personnel. Electrical safety standards are designed to minimize the risk of electrical hazards in the workplace. These standards are often developed by organizations such as the National Electrical Code, which provides guidelines for safe electrical installations and practices. Qualified electrical workers are individuals who have the necessary training, knowledge, and experience to perform electrical work safely. These workers are typically licensed or certified and are familiar with electrical safety standards and procedures. The six-hand operation rule is just one example of a safety measure that is intended to protect qualified electrical workers from electrical hazards. This rule acknowledges that manually operating main breakers can be physically demanding and potentially dangerous, especially if it involves a high number of operations in a short period. The rule aims to limit the number of manual operations to a level that is considered safe for the worker, taking into account the factors such as time, physical effort, and the risk of electrical shock or injury. By adhering to the six-hand operation rule, employers and workers can help to reduce the risk of electrical accidents and injuries in the workplace. It is important for qualified electrical workers to be aware of this rule and to follow it carefully when operating main breakers. In addition to the six-hand operation rule, there are other safety precautions that should be taken when working with main breakers and other electrical equipment. These precautions include wearing appropriate personal protective equipment such as gloves and eye protection, using insulated tools, and energizing circuits before working on them. It is also important to follow lockout/tagout procedures to ensure that circuits are not accidentally energized while work is being performed. Regular training and education on electrical safety are essential for all qualified electrical workers. This training should cover topics such as electrical hazards, safety procedures, and the proper use of personal protective equipment and tools. By staying informed and up to date on the latest electrical safety practices, workers can help to minimize the risk of electrical accidents and injuries. Furthermore, the specific requirements and guidelines related to the six-hand operation rule may vary depending on the jurisdiction and the specific type of electrical equipment involved. It is important to consult the applicable electrical codes and standards for the specific location and equipment to ensure compliance. The rationale behind the six-hand operation rule is to prevent fatigue and potential errors that can lead to accidents. Operating main breakers manually can be physically demanding, especially for larger breakers or in situations where the operating mechanism is stiff or difficult to move. Repeated manual operations can cause fatigue, which can impair a worker's judgment and coordination. Fatigue can increase the risk of errors, such as not fully engaging or disengaging the breaker, or making other mistakes that could lead to electrical hazards. The six-hand operation rule is a way to mitigate this risk by limiting the number of manual operations that a worker is allowed to perform in a given period of time. In addition to preventing fatigue, the six-hand operation rule also helps to reduce the risk of repetitive motion injuries. Repeatedly operating main breakers manually can put stress on the worker's hands, wrists, and arms. This stress can lead to repetitive motion injuries such as carpal tunnel syndrome or tendinitis. The six-hand operation rule helps to reduce the risk of these injuries by limiting the number of manual operations that a worker is allowed to perform. It is important to note that the six-hand operation rule is not a hard and fast limit. In some cases, it may be necessary for a worker to operate more than 6 main breakers manually in a given period of time. However, in these cases, it is important to take extra precautions to ensure the worker's safety. These precautions may include providing the worker with additional rest breaks, rotating workers to reduce fatigue, and using mechanical assistance to operate the breakers. The 6-hand operation rule is a valuable safety measure that helps to protect qualified electrical workers from electrical hazards. By understanding the rationale behind this rule and following it carefully, employers and workers can help to reduce the risk of electrical accidents and injuries in a workplace. It is also important to remember that the 6-hand operation rule is just one part of a comprehensive electrical safety program. A comprehensive program should also include regular training and education, proper use of personal protective equipment, and adherence to lockout/tagout procedures. By implementing a comprehensive electrical safety program, employers can create a safer working environment for their employees and reduce the risk of electrical accidents and injuries. The specific time frame for the 6-hand operation rule is not always explicitly defined in electrical codes or standards. It is often left to the employer or qualified electrical worker to determine what constitutes a reasonable period, taking into account the factors such as the size and type of breakers, the physical demands of the task, and the worker's individual capabilities. However, it is generally understood that the 6-hand operation rule is intended to apply to a relatively short period, such as a few hours or a single work shift. If a worker needs to operate more than 6 main breakers manually in a longer period, such as a full day, it may be necessary to take additional precautions to prevent fatigue and potential errors. These precautions could include scheduling more frequent rest breaks, rotating tasks among workers, or using mechanical assistance to operate the breakers. The goal is to ensure that the worker is not subjected to excessive physical strain or fatigue, which could increase the risk of accidents or injuries. In addition to the number of operations, the force required to operate the breaker is also a consideration. Some breakers require significantly more force to operate than others, which can contribute to fatigue and increase the risk of injury. If a worker is required to operate breakers that require a high degree of force, it may be necessary to reduce the number of manual operations allowed or to provide mechanical assistance. The type of operating mechanism on the breaker can also affect the physical demands of the task. Some breakers have simple toggle switches or push buttons, while others have more complex mechanisms that require more effort to operate. The design of the operating mechanism should be considered when assessing the potential for fatigue and injury. Furthermore, the environmental conditions in which the breaker is being operated can also play a role. If the breaker is located in a hot, humid, or otherwise uncomfortable environment, the worker may become fatigued more quickly, which could increase the risk of accidents or injuries. In these situations, it may be necessary to take additional precautions to ensure the worker's safety, such as providing cooling fans or other forms of ventilation. The 6-hand operation rule is not intended to be a rigid, inflexible limit. It is a guideline that should be applied with common sense and good judgment, taking into account all of the relevant factors. The ultimate goal is to ensure the safety of the qualified electrical worker and to prevent electrical accidents and injuries. If there is any doubt about whether a particular task can be performed safely, it is always best to err on the side of caution and to take additional precautions. This may involve reducing the number of manual operations, providing mechanical assistance, or simply taking more frequent rest breaks. The 6-hand operation rule is a reminder that electrical work can be physically demanding and potentially dangerous, and that it is important to take steps to minimize the risks. Qualified electrical workers should be properly trained and equipped, and they should be encouraged to speak up if they have any concerns about their safety. By working together, employers and workers can create a safer working environment for everyone. In addition to the physical demands of operating main breakers, it is also important to consider the mental demands of the task. Electrical work often requires a high degree of concentration and attention to detail, and fatigue can impair these cognitive functions. Fatigue can lead to errors in judgment, slow reaction times, and a reduced ability to recognize and respond to hazards. These cognitive impairments can increase the risk of electrical accidents and injuries. Therefore, it is important to take steps to minimize fatigue and to ensure that qualified electrical workers are mentally alert and focused when performing their duties. This may involve providing adequate rest breaks, avoiding long work hours, and creating a work environment that is free from distractions. It is also important to encourage workers to take responsibility for their own safety and to speak up if they are feeling fatigued or distracted. By addressing both the physical and mental demands of electrical work, employers can create a safer and more productive work environment. The six-hand operation rule is a valuable tool for managing the physical demands of operating main breakers, but it is just one part of a comprehensive approach to electrical safety. A comprehensive approach should also include measures to address the mental demands of the task and to promote a culture of safety in the workplace. The six-hand operation rule is also related to the concept of human factors in electrical safety. Human factors refer to the psychological, social, and organizational factors that can influence human performance in the workplace. These factors can include fatigue, stress, communication, training, and organizational culture. Human factors play a significant role in electrical accidents and injuries. In many cases, accidents are caused not by technical failures but by human errors that are influenced by human factors. Therefore, it is important to consider human factors when designing electrical safety programs and procedures. The six-hand operation rule is an example of a safety measure that is designed to address human factors. By limiting the number of manual operations that a worker is allowed to perform, the rule helps to reduce the risk of fatigue and errors that can be caused by human factors. In addition to the six-hand operation rule, there are other ways to address human factors in electrical safety. These include providing adequate training, improving communication, reducing stress, and promoting a culture of safety. By addressing human factors, employers can create a safer and more productive work environment for their employees. In conclusion, the six-hand operation rule is a valuable safety measure that helps to protect qualified electrical workers from electrical hazards. The rule is based on the number of main breakers that a qualified electrical worker is permitted to operate manually in a given period of time, taking into account factors such as the time it takes to operate a main breaker manually, the physical effort required, and the potential for electrical shock or injury. By adhering to the six-hand operation rule and other electrical safety precautions, employers and workers can help to reduce the risk of electrical accidents and injuries in the workplace. The rule serves as a reminder of the physical and mental demands of electrical work, emphasizing the need for qualified personnel to be adequately trained, rested, and supported to perform their duties safely. The six-hand operation guideline is not just about limiting the number of breaker operations. It's about understanding the whole picture of what contributes to safe and efficient work.